ladies and gentlemen. We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Podcast, the top podcast in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines. But most importantly, you guys provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I do say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak with transportation professionals, because at the end of the day, you guys, I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do, or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve. So you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. Happy Monday, everybody. I got a solo show for you guys here today. And we are just going to be breaking it down kind of like we always do on the solo shows. We're going to be talking about the market. We're going to be breaking down some industry headlines out there as well. But most importantly, we're going to focus on that actionable insight. And then again, as always, you guys, let's get the chat lively. If you have any questions about the market, sales, anything freight related, drop it in the chat, you guys. I'm more than happy to answer it live on the show here today. But yeah, you guys, it's humming along. I know that there's a lot of information that keeps coming out. There's a lot of emphasis on a potential sign of like market shifts and everything else. And, you know, I try not to be pessimistic about anything, but I always want to caution people to wait and see, right? Like, and especially if you're looking at how a freight market performs, and like right now, like it's always a good sign when you see people are declining freight, right? And I'm going to talk about tender rejections and stuff like that. Like, it's great to see from an overall opportunities perspective, but I think that when you can directly attribute it to specific events, i.e. between Thanksgiving and Christmas and everything else, weather events, I think that that's why I always want to tell people to err on the side of caution, in the sense of like, let's not think that everything's just going to miraculously be better because people are rejecting a couple of shipments. Now, is that positive? Yes, to a point. Is it going to be prolonged? That is what I want people to pay attention to. Because again, as I have mentioned on the show in the past, you guys, the way that it's going to go is anybody who's rejecting those tenders, for example, it's just going to go in network, right? Like, that doesn't mean that all of these doors are going to be open for new business opportunities out there. Now, it could, right? But at the end of the day, when you can attribute it to a seasonality of it, which is always great when the market is showing signs of a seasonal push, especially around the holidays. But I also think like we got to wait. And like I was telling you guys, we got to wait 30 days sometimes to see like, is this going to continue? Because if it's not, then again, it's like, I just don't want to be the boy who cried wolf situation. And just like every week I'm trying to just like reinvent myself and everything out there. I just want to come and talk about the realities as I'm actually working in the freight market, kind of how I see things out there. Because again, I see a lot of the headlines that are out there, but I'm also making sales calls as well, right? And I don't know about any of you guys out there. If any of you guys are making sales calls, sales emails, and everything else, I haven't noticed an influx of new opportunities, right? It's not like everybody I call is like, oh my God, we need somebody, please come help us. That's not there yet, right? So it's like, that's why I don't want to ever put any false hope out there, but I also want to just be a realistic optimist is how I like to really put it. Like, yeah, it's always great when we can see that, but again, we got to see how this stuff kind of trickles down. And one thing that I do, so I'm just like a lot of you guys, I use DAT in my business, and I want to just show this up. Like, this is a very good tool out there for you guys to go and look at, right? So I pulled up Reefer. I don't, use Reefer, freight or anything. And I think this is good because this is a very seasonally based trailer type that's out there, especially right now as we're getting those holiday shipments pushed out, all the food and everything. So it's like, it's good to pay attention to this, right? Where it's like, hey, Fresno, it's tight. Southern California, pretty much anything red means that there's tight capacity that's going on out there. So again, if you're looking at it like this, so maybe you have outbound LA freight, for example, but you have freight that is coming in from, say, Albuquerque, prime example here, right? It's moderately tight, right? But it's going in to a tight outbound market. So therefore, your rate from Albuquerque going into LA should reflect that, right? Because they're going to be able to go into that market to get a higher rate coming out. That's obviously what it means. When there's tighter capacity, natural supply and demand, the rates out of LA are going to go up, and freight going into those markets should relatively reflect that. Okay. I'm not saying that that's just the way it's always going to be, but as you're going about and you're bidding on freight, and then again, and this is primarily if you're a spot market style broker where you're out there, you're building your book of business, you're trying to get more consistent freight. You haven't quite got to that point yet. Now, again, if it's contract, you're gonna have to wear it. You're gonna have to own up to the rates that you provided. But again, if you're out there and you're doing same day spot market style quoting, if I'm going out there and I'm looking at this, like, all right, anything going in to Southern California, pretty much from Fresno on down, anything going in there, you might want to look at what it's going to actually cost to ship it in now because they're going to be getting a higher price point coming out of there. So again, spot market, truck in hand style stuff, your rate should naturally reflect that as you're going out there and bidding into that. But say now you're moving a load here. Let's just, choose the Austin, Texas market here. This is a very loose market. So if you're moving your freight, again, to take it down a little bit further, say you have a load moving outbound LA going to Austin, Texas, where it's like, hey, it's a pretty bad market going into Austin. So your rate going in there is going to be probably higher than most places, right? Or excuse me, it's going to be, yeah. So it's like, reading this stuff, you guys, is imperative, understanding how things are trending. And again, like why I love tools like this is you can go out. I know some people want that real life stuff, but like I like looking at historicals more than anything. I like to see exactly what's going on out there in the market and how it performs over a 30, 60, or a 90-day cycle, because I want to go out there and get as much consistency out there, right? Because I don't like to do run and gun as much as I possibly can, right? Like, yes, there's those last minute truck in hand style opportunities that come about, but from my seat, from my perspective, I want to deliver as much consistency as possible. So it's like, if there is going to be higher rejections right now along the seasonal push, right? Got to adjust your prices accordingly to come along with it. If it's that spot market truck in hand style rates, drivers, now pay attention to that stuff, right? I'm going to pull this up for all the drivers that are out there and say you are in these markets. For example, if you're in these markets and you are a driver, your rates should reflect that. All right. Because again, if we're out here, it's tight capacity in Southern California. You probably know that. But again, you want to adjust your prices accordingly, because drivers, you need to get your money too, right? You need to get out there and get your money. So you should be paying attention to this, right? Minneapolis market, same thing. If you got a bunch of reefer trailers up in Minneapolis right now and you're looking outbound, guess what? There's probably more freight than there is trucks. So drivers, change your prices accordingly. See what you can get out there, right? That's the beauty of the spot market is there's going to be times where you're going to make a decent amount of money. There's going to be times where, you know what, you might wish you had that contracted rate in there. But again, if you're going to live by the spot market, you're going to die by the spot market. I've said that a lot on there. So again, pay attention to this, right? If tender rejections continue, and now again, I know when I say 30 days, people couldn't even fathom that in today's society of instant gratification, but you need to pay attention to this stuff post holiday. All right. And I'm talking like mid to late January. That's a clear indicator. If this stuff continues into that, point of emphasis, that's a good data point that you're going to want to start tracking to see. But I like to just kind of call balls and strikes as I see them. I'm actively out there cold calling. Like I said, I haven't seen any new opportunities, right? I haven't cold called anybody and got that desperation that it kind of used to be out there when you'd cold call. So again, it's like, yeah, these are great data points, but to sit here and, I just don't want to ever be the boy that cried wolf. I just want to, teach people how to read the freight market, how I read it from my seat. And again, put that actionable insights of what you can go out there. So that's our little freight market update on what we got here. Corey Buchan, good morning. Happy Monday. T. Landy, morning to you as well over on YouTube, you guys. And hey, YouTube, I'm trying to get everybody over there because between a lot of the platforms that I stream on, YouTube and Twitter are the ones who let me speak as freely and don't do stuff to certain traffic once words are used out there, because heaven forbid anybody has an opinion in this world. But let's get into it here, you guys. Let's get into some articles here that we are going to talk about. Again, it's a little bit more about the market. This one came out last Friday. This is from overdriveonline.com. The state of freight is sluggish, even amid spot spikes, capacity hits with ELD, ELP, and CDL focus out there. Despite seasonal spikes after Thanksgiving, the U.S. trucking market does remain sluggish. Spot market rates for vans and reefers have risen temporarily, with reefers reaching 2-year highs, but these gains are not likely to be sustained. Flatbed rates remain stable, i.e., it's not building season right now. So flatbeds are, primarily pretty loose right now from a capacity standpoint. But, owner operators are expected to face significant daily fixed costs, making it just like their fixed costs are going to continue, right? Like there's not going to be any reprieve from that. But the spot market, like we were just talking about, right? When you live by the spot market, you die by the spot market. And again, I think that there are short-term implications that come along with this when you see those rate spikes out there. But again, I think long-term, I think we're going to see it kind of calm back down, right? So it's like if you're a broker out there and you're paying higher rates, carriers are going to get their money right now, right? Because in 30 days from now, historically, by mid-January, after the true holiday hangover wears off, or physical hangover, but holiday hangover, rates are probably going to normalize again. And I think those are some of those things that you need to start paying attention to out there, like we had just kind of discussed. Flatbed stability, if we're looking at it from that perspective, in regards to this market, obviously there's way less seasonal swings right now because it's off peak for flatbeds right now. May, I would say late April, early May through November, that's peak flatbed season. You see a completely different environment out there. But, I look at it where it's, if we're looking at the overall carrier performance that's going on, it's just one of those situations that there is, again, their costs aren't dropping at all. So it's like, and to kind of, not to get sidetracked, but like I'm on social media just as much as the next guy, hopefully less than the next guy, because I try not to waste my entire day on there. But it's like, it's wild to me when you see the opinions of brokers just talking crap about drivers for getting additional money right now, or requesting an additional $1,000 on a lane right now when capacity tightens up. And, it's just wild. And again, every time I see that, I kind of chuckle, because it's like, it's kind of the way that the market's always been. And it's just funny to me to see a lot of people complaining when people quote more money. I mean, I never heard a broker complain when they got it for less, right? But, just talking about this, I think that, most importantly right now, it is all going to be attributed to seasonality. Again, I'm not trying to be the bearer of bad news, but if we're going to go out there and look at it, I look at it from the sole standpoint is that it could be a seasonal tie. Now, again, capacity reductions, I know that that's another key emphasis point for a lot of people out there in the social media world. It's when you're out there and you see some of the, the mainstream influencers out there, whether they're, left or right leaning, and they're talking about capacity exiting the market. I know the number 9,000 sounds like a massive number to some people who've never been in the transportation industry before. But if 9,000 drivers were removed from the market, that doesn't do anything compared to current freight volumes out there, right? So it's like there's a lot of balancing that is going to need to be taking place. There's going to have to be, unfortunately, and again, I'm not advocating for anybody to go out of business. I want to be abundantly clear, but there's going to have to be a lot more drivers that are going to have to come out to have that show any like massive gains out there in regards to like capacities leaving the market. We're a ways away from anything like that happening. So, again, on this article, you guys talking about it, the state of freight is sluggish. And again, I hope I'm wrong, right? Because like my brokerage, my day job that I do as well, my brokerage would very much benefit from a market rebound and everything else, just like the rest of you guys. But again, I just want to speak kind of, my truth out there from my perspective. And again, like I was talking about in the market report, as we were diving in today, there's a lot of factors that could kind of go into it. And again, and I think one of the main factors that is never talked about is when it comes to like tender rejections and market performance and everything else, I always like to draw a circle around like the upper, above the Mason-Dixon line, we can call it. And, because they're the ones who are most affected by weather. And I would love to see, and somebody might do this. And if somebody out there is doing this and they can bring it to my attention, please do. When we talk about tender rejections, I would love to see the geographic area of where those tenders are being rejected. And if there's a direct correlation into a weather event that happened during that time frame, right? Like obviously Minnesota got in the upper Midwest, got pounded with snow like a week ago or something like that. I would love to see that data. How many tenders were rejected due to a weather event? Because I think that just tells a clearer story, and that gives people more of an idea on market performance overall. But that article, you guys, was from overdriveonline.com. And second article we are going to break down, also from Overdrive Online, and it's a new bill that is going on out there that explores the path to interstate driving for under 21 truck drivers. Now, for those of you who are unaware, you can get your CDL at 18 years old, but you can't leave the state, right? So when you hear the term intrastate, so you can get your CDL here in the state of Arizona or most states, to the best of my knowledge, at 18, and you can travel in the state only. You cannot cross state lines, and you can start doing that after you turn 21 years old. And this new bill will explore that. It's called the Responsible Opportunities for Under 21 Trucking Engagement, or ROUTE Act, which would allow 18 to 20-year-old CDL holders to drive commercial trucks across state lines within 150 air mile radius of their home reporting location. Current federal regulations prohibit under 21 drivers from interstate driving entirely. Drivers would have to return to their home base within 14 hours and complete a 10-hour off-duty rest before returning to work. Supporters argue this opens pathways for young American workers, there's not a driver shortage, but they put this in the article, addressing driver shortages, and allows skill building in controlled environments. Critics question safety, insurance, and practical adoption by carriers. Corey said they got about a foot of snow. You're up in Montana, right, Corey? But, again, like some of the pros from this, right? I'm not saying that there's a shortage of drivers currently, but if we look at the pipeline, right? And if we look at overall skilled labor, blue collar jobs that are out there, there's a massive opportunity that comes along with it. And, because I look at it is, when I use the term driver shortage, I'm not talking in a current context of it, right? But if you look at the age of the median age of the driver population that's out there, the last time I checked, I believe it was like mid to late 40s is what is out there. So again, it could result in that in due time. I'm not saying that there is right now. So again, if it's like, if you look at this from a opportunities perspective, and again, I'm from a town of like 2,000 people in northern Wisconsin, you guys, there's not a lot of opportunities that are out there for kids who don't want to go to college, that might want to get into the trades. And driving trucks is a very clear pathway for a lot of individuals that'll take that. And then furthermore, too, like it's one of the best opportunities for a lot of individuals to go out and then eventually go out on their own, become a business owner, make six figures plus, maybe build out a fleet. And you don't need to go $60,000, $70,000 into debt, to go to college and do that, right? So it's like, I look at it as in its current form, there is no driver shortage, but I think in due time, if we don't have that pathway to success that comes along of like recruiting people into the industry, get them behind the wheels, that nomad lifestyle, that nomad personality who wants to be out on their own. They want to drive by themselves. They don't want to be confined to an office and everything else. This is a great way. And there's a great, program that we could potentially build out to really go with this. And again, I think like that limited radius, it gives more and more training, right? Like I almost look at it as like an apprenticeship, and I think like they could take a lot of, I'm not saying that they have to follow the exact same structure, but like they could take a lot of notes from like airline pilots, for example. Like I got a buddy of mine who was a driver, actually. Shout out Tyler. What's going on, brother? But now he's a flight instructor, right? So he went out there, he got his pilot's license, and it sounds like he's seemingly wanting to get out into flying for the airlines, right? But it's like you had to hit so many flight hours before you can kind of graduate up. So it's like, I think that there's a lot of parallels they could draw from this to where you could go in, get your truck at, your CDL at 18, start out at intrastate. And then again, You get those driving hours with a qualified instructor behind the wheel to do interstate transit. And again, I think you do. You follow that 150-mile radius rule that comes along with it. And I just look at it as this just opens up the pipeline for a career path that a lot of people might not even be aware of, or they might not even think that that might be for them. But again, when you're young, man, when you go back to being 18 to 20 years old, you should try a bunch of stuff, especially if you know college isn't for you, because college isn't for everybody. You don't need to go to college to make a good living for yourself out there anymore. You can literally get in to some of these jobs and you can make six figures by the time you're 20, 21 years old. You know, I'm not saying that that's the norm, but it's an opportunity that comes along with it. And, you know, I look at it is there is common sense that we could apply to this to really have this one, get this one up and running to really help fill that pipeline. Again, there's not a driver shortage, but there could be, and then we might be in a pretty bad spot overall. So I think this is a really good way to do it that comes along with it. And again, obviously, you guys, there's some cons to this, right? Like insurance is high enough. God knows what that would do to insurance rates. And then, you know, the training and everything else. There's a lot of hurdles that could kind of come along with it. In its current form, I don't think it could work. But with the right planning, the right like the right investment in the structure and the training and everything else that comes along with it, I think that this could be a very plausible way to build out our skilled driver pipeline here in the future. Now, that article also was from overdriveonline.com. And, you know, here's another article here, you guys. The third article we're going to break down is from FreightWaves. And it came out last week and I missed it, but I saw it this weekend. And I'm like, I want to talk about this because the title, has the FMCSA's decade-old chameleon carrier system been running on autopilot? This article examines the FMCSA's decade-old carrier system, which was designed to detect trucking companies that shut down and reopen under new identities to evade safety violations. A recent review suggests the system may have been underutilized or running on autopilot, leading to questions about whether the FMCSA is effectively enforcing safety and compliance. I'm going to say previously, no. Currently, yes, they are seemingly taking a lot of things more seriously than past administrations. And then, you know, the chameleon carrier problem, right? Like we've all seen those videos of the guys slapping new stickers on the side of their truck. They're flopping out authorities and everything else that comes along with it. And, you know, I look at it as the technology is there for them to stop this, right? I just hope that the bureaucratic process in DC is expedited to fix this stuff, right? Because it's like, again, every truck has a VIN number. Granted, there's ways around everything. Like criminals don't care about the law. So, but I'm talking about like, there's unique identifiers on trucks, trailers, tying it in, you know, VIN numbers, everything to the insurance and stuff like that. Like, I don't understand how one VIN number could be potentially listed on multiple policies that are out there, or how any of these insurance companies that might be insuring, because I would just beg to assume that all of these carriers who are operating like this in the chameleon sense probably use the same insurance provider as well. So my friends at the FMCSA who are probably listening to this right now, because some of your guys' ideas may or may not come about 3 months after I talk about them on the show, I would start looking into the insurance aspect of it. Do they even have active insurance from this? Or is it the same handful of insurance providers that are issuing policies knowing that these trucks and trailers are under multiple authorities, and then they all have the same blanket policy that comes along with it? And then when they shut down or they reincarnate, it's the exact same stuff. It's just now Chris Jolly did own ABC Trucking. Well, that was a dumpster fire organization, double brokered a bunch of stuff, stole a bunch of shit. Now Chris Jolly is under ABD Trucking, and it's the exact same information, right? Because they're able to reincarnate, become chameleon carriers. I guarantee everything is under the same insurance companies as well. So bold prediction here, just like I had said back in August about shutting down the CDL schools and then looking at which states are actually issuing the CDLs. I think the next iteration of this is what insurance companies are actually providing insurance policies for all of these carriers. I would bet to argue that it's the same handful of them and they're all connected. Just throwing that out there. You already have all of the information on file. I would look into that direction next there, FMCSA. Colleen Lusk says physical addresses as well. I don't think insurance companies check them. How do you have 40 power units in an apartment complex? Well said, Colleen. Well said. But that article, you guys, again, and I think that this is going to be the next one, and I hope the FMCSA really attacks this. That article was from FreightWaves about the decade-old chameleon carrier system that is in place. And again, I think that they're on the right path with that. But I would definitely look at the insurance providers who's allowing this, and I would probably bet that it's the same handful of insurance companies that are issuing all of these. All right. That's where I would start next, my friends at the FMCSA, who are probably listening to this show. You took my advice on the CDL schools when I talked about it 4 months ago. Now take it with the insurance companies and the ties to those chameleon carriers. Just a quick little bonus article here. I got to give a shout out. This article I just saw it this morning, came from FreightWaves as well, but it was talking about my favorite entrepreneur inside of the transportation space. And that is Mr. Brad Jacobs. He is stepping down from XPO and GXO, it looks like. And he is just going to focus everything on his new venture at QXO out there. He is quoted as saying, by transitioning out of my board positions at XPO and GXO, I can dedicate even more energy to QXO and Jacobs Private Equity. He said in a prepared statement, we intend to grow QXO into a $50 billion revenue leader in building products distribution through assertive. I went to public school. I don't know I'm drawing a blank on that word. Acquisitions and organic growth. XPO and GXO are in excellent shape, and their prospects are very bright. After he did step down as CEO of XPO in 2022, he retained the role of executive chairman. And I say he's my favorite entrepreneur out there. If you haven't read his book, How to Make a Few Billion Dollars, I would highly recommend that book. That has helped clear up a lot of strategy inside of my company and what we're doing in the future. I've listened to all of his interviews with David Senra on the Founders Podcast as well. And, you don't mistakenly build multiple companies into billion-dollar companies. Like, he's done it like 9 times. I think QXO will be the 9th one that comes along with it. And, he's my favorite entrepreneur because, as somebody who worked for XPO in the early days, everything he talked about in the book and everything he talks about now, like kind of firsthand experiencing that back in the day, just seeing him with his yellow legal pads and just taking a ton of notes from a bunch of mid-20-year-olds who were just slanging trucks. And, it's cool to see. That's why, guys, when I say success leaves clues, those are the guys that you got to watch. There's plenty of successful entrepreneurs that are out there, but a guy like Brad Jacobs, you don't do it in multiple industries and grow to the multipliers that he has by mistakes. And then he writes a book and just kind of lays out their playbook out there. I highly recommend reading it. I'm really hoping to have him on the show one day. I've tried, and there's only so much you can do. But Brad, if you're listening to this, you're one of my favorite, if not my favorite entrepreneur out there. Would love to have you on the show when you have time. But that is going to be, if you guys want to check that article out, though, you guys, it's from freightwaves.com. But that's going to be it for today, ladies and gentlemen. We got some guests coming on this week as well. It's getting a little bit closer to the holidays, so I might be doing a little bit more solo shows because, you guys have lives, right? Not everybody just wants to come and sit down. If you guys want to, come and shoot the shit with me, I'll be coming on there, and we're going to be making some interesting changes going into 2026, you guys. I'm really excited about the direction that we're going to be taking the show next year. But that will be it for today, ladies and gentlemen. As always, if you got value in what you heard and you're not subscribed, subscribe to the show, you guys. And if you're feeling ambitious, rank that show on iTunes and Spotify, because if you see value, your network's going to see it as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon.